guys. Today we're talking about the dualistic nature of reality, of this 3D matrix reality, as well as divine neutrality, and how we are encouraged to balance the opposites. Okay, so as we know, we can't have up without down, we can't have space without solid, we can't have right without wrong. So in order for us to be able to navigate ourselves through the matrix of opposites, right, and integrate information experientially, we need a dualistic reality. So this is not needed in higher perspectives, but in the perspective of matter, this is what we need, because then we can, through our experience of experiencing the opposite, see what we are or what we are not. The problem with this is, in the 3D matrix, this has been weaponized against us, right? So in other words, I think it's Albert Maysles who said tyranny is the deliberate removal of nuance. So as a society evolves, obviously we need discernment, and we need to be able to see, if I'm going to Cape Town, is it better to go south or is it better to go north? But south being better than north on a whole is not a truth. And what we do as a society is we have black-white thinking, right? And the media actually encourages this. So, are you going to take the blue pill? Are you going to take the red pill? But it's actually just vote for puppet on the left or puppet on the right. And this is where the egregore, I explained this in previous videos, the egregore is a thought system that becomes conscious because enough people buys into it, right? A hypernorm, overarching ideology. So this is where the overarching ideology feeds off our energy to exist, right? And it doesn't care whether we are fighting against it or whether we are for it, because both will give it energy. So in other words, whether you're extremely liberal and you judge everyone that's conservative, or whether you're extremely conservative and you judge everyone that's liberal, makes no mistake, right? Because you're still judging, which means you're still separated, which means you're still unaware of the fact that we're all one. So there's a psychological aspect to this. Yes, the matrix is dualistic, but also we have to look at the two sides of this as well. So there's the lower perspective of the archons creating the matrix and it being dualistic and divided. Then there is the higher consciousness of this being a school, and that it's just that much easier to learn from dualism. But what do we do with dualism? We have to be able to hold divine dichotomies. So cognitive dissonance happens when your brain believes two opposing thoughts at the same time. This usually happens when new information is brought into your perceptual field, and it is asking you to make a paradigm shift. But because you can't do that, your brain goes into cognitive dissonance. It actually becomes narrow-minded. And then one of two things happens. Either this extreme tension created by the interplay of opposites, right? Either it shuts you down, and then you just go back to your previous perspective and you double down on it, right? Hating the outside perspective even more, or you're able to hold the opposites and then expand your frame of reference, expand the synthesis, right? The context through which you understand reality, and then you have a paradigm shift. And the interesting thing with that paradigm shift is both are still true. Okay, so a wonderful example of this opposite interplay is Apollo and Dionysus. So in ancient Greek times, they had Apollo, and Apollo is god of music, mathematics, taking responsibility, very left brain, right? It's interesting that music is there, but it is beauty, responsibility, order. And then you have Dionysus, the god of wine and lust and ridiculous, ecstatic dances. And as long as Greece had both of those, right, they were not suppressing their shadow. So they were aware of the wilder aspects of the psyche as well as the ordered aspects of the psyche. And then they could survive. But the moment they got rid of Dionysus, the moment they suppressed the material, suppressed the more wily aspects of their nature within their psyche, then things became really debaucherous, right? Rome fell, and, nothing was what it was supposed to be. So this has to do with the psyche. As I've said before, we are in a holographic universe, and we project onto others the deepest denied aspects within ourselves. And this is where dualistic thinking and dualism then really comes into play, because I can make you wrong by being right. And as long as I'm making you wrong, I can feel right and I can feel better than without doing any work. This is why what other people are doing is none of your business, right? Unless they're hurting people and you're supposed to stop it, then stop it, right? But bitching about it and freaking out about it and getting angry about it is you avoiding your own growth. Also, in the spiritual community, a lot of the times, they'll say the light will win, the light will win. I remember when I was a kid, I was 7, and I watched The Dark Crystal. Do yourself a favor. There's a, a whole prequel series on Netflix about it, which is amazing. But the original movie, The Dark Crystal, is incredible. And in this, they have the Skeksis, the baddies, they literally suck the souls of these little creatures in order to survive. And then you have the mystics, these very docile, beautiful. So once again, Dionysian, Apollonian, right? And it's a very scary movie. And at the end of this movie, you would now think that the mystics would win and they would kill the Skeksis and the light has won, because this is what dualistic thinking tells us, right? But at the end of The Dark Crystal, and please go look at the end, it's so gorgeous. When the crystal is restored, the Skeksis and the mystics actually merge into each other and become a higher, more integrated being. So this is the very important aspect to remember of breaking free from the matrix, right? It's called the razor's edge in Buddhism. In Christianity, they talk about the narrow path and the wide path, right? But I think it's even more pertinent, it's even more potent if you talk about the razor's edge. Because you can go off to the one side or you can go off to the other side. Being off center means you're unintegrated. So another way of looking at this is if you look at the story of Lucifer and Ahriman. So firstly, Lucifer is not Satan. People don't know occult, which just means hidden, readings enough, right? Unfortunately, the Bible is a wonderful book, but it makes blanket statements, right? And it eradicates nuance, right? Once again. So on the left side, we have Lucifer. So Lucifer is the light. It is unintegrated spiritual light. It is the search for higher knowledge, the search for higher awareness. It could lead to psychosis. So an example of this would be somebody who only takes psychedelics and wants to see the other side all the time, right? It's very ungrounded. And then on the right-hand side, we have Ahriman. So Ahriman is materialism. And we have Hollywood, people who try to remain young. It's money, it's sex, it's fame, it's plastic surgery, it's ego, right? And then in the middle, we have Christ consciousness. Now, if you look at the nadis within your body and you look at your chakras, right, everything is moving like this. So as you're walking on the razor's edge, sometimes you'll be on the Luciferian side, sometimes you'll be on the Ahriman side, sometimes you'll be on the Luciferian side, sometimes you'll be on the Ahriman side, but you are walking on the razor's edge. And to do that, you have to be able to integrate these opposites, right? It's the yin and the yang. There is light within the dark, and there is dark within the light. And without each other, these two cannot alchemize and evolve to a higher perspective. So next time you're judging something, see if you're in dualistic thinking. It's also interesting that if you look at the 3 crosses on the hill, it actually shows this very well, because you've got Christ in the middle, then the guy on the right hand side who is mocking him. I think maybe I'm mixing up left and right, but anyway, mocking him. And then you've got the guy on the left hand side saying, think about me today when you are in paradise. And then Christ says, you will be in paradise with me. And I think the part of that metaphor is that the guy on the left is lost in just spiritual. So he can see Christ consciousness, right? Even though he's not in body and yet, because he's not grounded, he's not in material reality. And the guy on the right can't even see it, right? Because he is just in material reality. So we have to work with the higher realms, with the higher understanding, with the linking up with spiritual knowledge. But then we have to ground it down into material reality. The magic is in the matter. Even though this is a game, we have to have blood in the game, because we chose to be here, and therefore being able to hold these opposites and entertain both sides with love and without judgment means that eventually we'll break through to a higher perspective, a higher paradigm, right? And be able to integrate. Have a lovely day.